So we want
Right.
to put out a declaration of goodwill, and to do this, we need to put together something simple that people will understand. And Wayne asked me how, if it was like the Articles of Faith. That's what I was trying to think of. And it's not like the Articles of Faith of the Mormon Church at all. It's not like a declaration of our belief. The Declaration of Goodwill will be similar to the Declaration of Independence. That's what I wanted to stress. And Declaration of Independence is totally different than some church giving out Declaration of Belief. But the Declaration of Independence give out to the world a thought form of what they wanted to accomplish. And the Declaration of Goodwill will give out a thought form of what we want to accomplish as far as producing goodwill and among humanity as a whole. And this will be an important point to project out to humanity. Any comment on that before we move ahead there? What's that beeping? That's strange. Okay, we're going to talk about, as we proceed here, is oneness through the soul. How can we achieve oneness through the soul? I was talking about this on the Keys group over a decade ago. And some of the members of the Keys group thought, well, oneness of the soul, that should be easy to achieve. I mean, aren't we all one here? Don't we all think as one? And I says, well, it may be easier than you think. So I said, let me give the group something to think about, and let's see if we can achieve oneness. To achieve the challenge to achieve oneness is when there's a challenge for it is when you have two or more people actually disagreeing on something. And then if they disagree, if they go to the soul will be able to unite them if they can both contact the soul. Because the soul of two different people will not, well, the soul of like Curtis will not disagree with my soul. The soul of Rulina will not disagree with my soul. Yet we as personalities, we disagree with each other. So the question is, how can we achieve oneness as personalities? We achieve oneness through contacting the soul. Well, the group thought, well, we can do that. You know, that should be no problem at all. So I said, okay, let's see how good the group is at this. So I give them a question with a political angle, because there's nothing people disagree in this generation more than politics. It had something to do with democracy. I don't remember the exact question, but whether pure democracy was good or bad or whatever. Anyway, I put a question out, and there was strong disagreement as to the answer to this question. And I says, okay, here's the problem. I said, when there's a disagreement, you have to break down the ingredients. Say there's 3 ingredients that make up the whole argument, okay? Ingredient 1, 2, and 3, okay? Maybe you agree on ingredient 2 and 3, but you disagree on ingredient 1. So if you can break it down and then figure out what the problem is with ingredient 1, then you already agree on ingredient 2 and 3. So you can reach harmony if you can just reach agreement on ingredient 1. So I broke this down, and one of the ingredients was what a law was, because people couldn't agree on what a law was. And I tried to point out, well, there's laws that are civil laws, and then there's laws of nature, like there's laws of gravity, and then there's a law that you can't speed limit is 60 miles an hour or something like that, you know. So I says these are one is kind of a regulation, another is kind of a law. I says, so we need to agree on what a law is. And we spent about 3 weeks arguing over what a law was. And we could never, as a group, agree on what a law was. Part of the group thought a law was one thing, part of them thought something else. And this was just one of the multi-ingredients of the whole original question. So this was a very simple thing as to what a law is that we could not agree on, and we couldn't even get close to even approaching the soul. Couldn't even get close. I mean, everybody's minds was so far apart on what a law was that we could not even consider approaching the soul on the matter to tell us what was right and what was wrong, because the opinions were, the bias was so strong on one side or another that there was no way that anyone was going to receive any answer from the soul about confirmation about what a law was.
Wayne wasn't there.
What'd say?
Good thing Wayne wasn't there.
Yeah, Wayne was there. Yeah, who knows what Wayne would have come up with there in that type of argument. But so this was a basic. This is a basic problem with reaching unity. Is it seems like it should be really easy, but when two people approach an idea with two different opinions, then people do not want to let go of that opinion. But to approach the soul, you have to let go, become a small child, and say, maybe I'm completely screwed to hell about what law is. So you approach the soul in meditation or prayer and ask, what is the right direction on this matter? And what's the principle behind the law? What's the difference behind a civil law and a law of nature? What's the difference behind a law that tells you your speed limit and another law that tells about the law of gravity? I mean, there's two totally different things. But the trouble is that part of the group was lumping them all together. Like a law is a law, no matter whether it's the law of gravity or speed limit or whatever. I mean, they're like lumping them all together. And I was trying to tell them, look, no, they're different. We have, well, there's one law like a regulation type of law, a civil law. That's different from a law of nature. And so anyway, we had quite a go around there, and we went around for about 3 or 4 weeks just talking about nothing about what a law was. And after it was over, I said, well, do you guys now see the difficulty in a group becoming one through the soul? It's easy to become one when you already agree on everything. But what if you disagree? And sooner or later, you get a group together, you're going to have part of the group disagree with another part of the group. And that's where you have the problem. That's where you have the problem in creating a molecule, is that basic disagreement in people's minds. People have calculated their beliefs and they figured them out in their minds, what is right and what is wrong, and what is error and what is right, and so on, and what is truth. And they just can't harmonize. They can't harmonize because to harmonize, you have to go above the mind. The mind can go so far. Once you get people, say atheists, that have reached the apex of the mind, where the mind can go. One atheist arguing with another atheist, they will often disagree on a lot of points because they cannot go above the mind, and the mind slays the real. So to avoid being slayed by the real, we have to go above the mind to the intuitive level that goes to the soul. And when we go to the soul together, the soul makes us one. because through the eyes of the soul, we can see as one. Through the eyes of the soul, you can see that the difference between a civil law and a law of nature, it becomes all of a sudden very clear when two people are looking through the eyes of the soul, and they will see them in as one mind. And this is very difficult to achieve. And it's something that many groups that are enlightened have a tremendous difficulty with, because there's still problems with the personality. You have the soul and the personality. The personality involves the physical brain, the emotional body, and the lower mind. And these three things, for most people, is all there is in their universe. But there's the higher mind that's linked with the soul, and then there's an intuitive part of ourselves linked with all there is. And when this is reached, then two people that's linked to the soul will be able to see eye to eye. This is what a lot of people that I've taught in my past have difficulty with. They think that no two people can see eye to eye. They think, well, everybody likes a different color, they likes a different car. Well, that's their personality. That's different than seeing principles. But as far as seeing principles, two people through the soul can see eye to eye with a principle. Like we were talking about in the group, there's a principle behind a civil law and a law of nature. It's two totally different things. And what part of the group was doing was lumping civil laws and laws of nature together as if they were just one thing. But they're two totally different things. And so to see through the eyes of the soul, people can differentiate and discern one thing from another. And so they can see through, two people seeing through the soul is like seeing the same movie. They see the same movie, the same actions, and they come to the same conclusions. And it's interesting how many New Agers think this is like totally impossible. They think it's part of our evolution, and part of the beauty of being a human is to disagree with each other on lots of things. On a personality level, yes, but on a soul level, there is virtually no disagreement on principles. As far as preference for what we may like on a physical level, there's all kinds of differences. People like people that are in the soul can like different movies, different colors, different events, different bands, different music. That's fine. On a personality level, that's very normal. But on a soul level, the soul looks at principles, and so any two principles should be uh, able to be seen through the eyes of the soul as the same. Now, I think our group here is pretty good about seeing through the eyes of the soul together. Most of us have been here a while. Anthony's fairly new. Who else is new?
Well, Pam's
Ter-
new, but she's not here.
Terry's fairly new. And the rest of you have been around here for a while. But you two new people are blending right in really great. But the people that are here right now, everybody that's here right now, are quite sensitive, I think, to the soul energies, and are capable of seeing principles through the soul. And the problem with seeing principles is that people have difficulty understanding. A person has to reach a certain degree of consciousness before he can even understand what a principle is. There's so many people I've explained what a principle is, and then when I've gotten feedback, I understand that they don't have a clue what a principle is, even though I've explained it to them a number of times. And I've concluded that it takes a certain achievement of consciousness to understand the difference between a principle and a fact, because that's an important achievement to make, to be able to understand the difference between a principle and a fact. The lever principle is the lever is a principle. You can take a lever and multiply your power to move large objects with a lever of some kind. But the amount of distance you move them is a fact. And that's the basic difference. The principle can move mountains, whereas a data is just a piece of information that comes and goes. And so there's a tremendous difference between a principle and a fact. And this is an important point to realize, and to be able to see that in all the information that's presented to us, to see the principles and the fact in everything that we receive takes a certain amount of evolution in the person himself to be able to differentiate between a principle and a fact. So the big challenge for people in a group, and this will happen to us eventually, and I'm surprised it hasn't happened to us yet. It's a testimony that to the quality of our group, that we have been able to stay intact without a lot of conflict. Now, this wasn't so in the beginning. When we first started the Keys, we had quite a bit of conflict. And when Curtis and I started our groups, we had a tremendous amount of conflict. And so maybe it's because we've had a lot of filtering out over a period of time. And we've got a group here that I think is quite high quality and quite able to differentiate and to be tolerant of other views on the personality level. And I don't know anyone here that gets offended easily, which is an important thing, is that people get offended so easily. If you get offended in a group and somebody offends you in a group and you harbor a grievance, then your soul connection is basically zero as far as the group is concerned at that point. You have to let that pass through you. And I have to give accolades to the members of the group here. I haven't seen much problem in that area for the people that are here. And so, the people that are here are really decent people, and they're really struggling to achieve the light, and they have sincerity, and they want to do what's right, and they're not easily offended, because most people, the general population, are quite easily offended. This is evidenced by all the political correctness that's demanded right now. I mean, people just, there's all kinds of people just stay awake at night trying to figure out what to be offended at next. And then pretty soon we find out new words that they're offended at. Words that maybe a couple weeks ago didn't offend anybody, now all of a sudden they're offended by certain words that were innocent just a short time ago. And they're often called something like dog whistles. You give a dog whistle. You didn't say anything obviously offensive, but you give a dog whistle, which means that you were thinking the wrong thing. And the way you phrased it, give me information that tells me that you are a bad person because you give this dog whistle. Yeah, the idea that the dog whistle idea is just totally repulsive to me. because using the word dog whistle, you can just say that anything anybody says is a terrible thing because of the dog whistle idea. And so, yeah, I think that is humanity in many ways is here lately has been going the wrong direction. But we reach a point of tension over a period of time. So even if we go the wrong direction, once we go so far, then people realize, hey, this is the wrong direction. Now we have to go the right direction. Like the protests. The protests, you know, we think, well, we'll put up with these protests because that's an American system, allowing people to protest. Then they start breaking windows and stuff. And then we think, well, that's bad, but we still, it's worth it for people to be able to protest. And they start attacking policemen, and then there's some murders and fires going off and all kinds of things. And then we reach a point where people think, hey, whoa, you know, we've gone too far. Now we have to go back. And eventually this is what happens. We're like, we go back and forth like a pendulum. Pendulum swings to the left, and then it reaches its maximum, and then it goes to the right. And this is what happens with us as a society, is things swing one way and then they swing another. Right now, it's swinging in the direction of political correctness, where they're trying to control our speech, tell us what we can and can't say. And once we get so far in that direction, there will be a rebellion. And pretty soon people will start saying anything they want to say. And I'm kind of looking forward to that day when people really rebel and start saying all kinds of politically incorrect things. And I will find that a very interesting time period to go through. And then we'll swing the other way. But when we swing the other way, on another turn of the spiral, we don't swing as far as we did before. And then when we swing back, we don't swing as far as we did before. And eventually, the pendulum will stop at the midway point at the center of peace. And as long as that pendulum is at the center of peace, then we can have a peaceful society until someone starts the pendulum swinging again. Because sooner or later, even during a period of peace, we get placid and apathetic. And so we decide, hey, the peace was nice, but I'm ready for some excitement. So we start swinging the pendulum again, and the cycle starts all over, but not exactly as before. It'll be a little bit different than before. And that's what's interesting about eternal progression, is every time there's a new cycle, we don't repeat the past cycle. And this is an illusion that many teachers have taught, is that what we're doing in one cycle is just exactly what we did in another cycle. Well, it's not. It's with a different spin. It's always a different spin, always new things or ingredients in the new cycle. So the question is, how do we go about achieving oneness through the soul if there is a disagreement? Now, eventually, as we create these molecules and groups, there will be disagreements on particular specific things. How do we go about handling them? Curtis,
Well,
you worked with me in several groups. What's your opinion on that?
I think the big problem is when I disagree with you on an idea and I take it down to the emotional level of anger, and I get mad at you for thinking something different. Now, my brother thinks different than I do politically, but if he keeps his ideas to himself and doesn't want to fight with me over it, I can reach a plane, an agreement on the level of the soul on most things, on being connected with him. I don't have to agree with everything he thinks, but if he gets angry with me for not thinking the way he does, that's the problem. But if it goes down to the emotional level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the trouble. The emotional level is very potent. And once a person feels a certain way towards a certain way of thinking, then it's very difficult to change them. And to find a group that can be one, you have to find a group that is not tied to emotional thinking. And so far, we've done pretty good with this group. The members of this group are tied to soul thinking more than emotional thinking.
Yeah.
We might change your mind later on once we proceed, but so far the group has been very quite harmonious compared to other things I've done in the past. So you're going to say something, Curtis?
Well,
No, no, me.
yeah, I'll say. Well, Terry's going to say something, but I'll
Yeah, I
say.
just want to. It's okay. I know.
Oh,
Yeah, I just want to say something. If I remember very well, what DK said was that we should not criticize group members, but rather recognize the weakness of another member and try to balance that weakness rather than openly criticize other group members. I think that is the advice from DK.
yeah.
Yeah, he says that over and over. I was going to say, I may not agree with Stacy Miller on everything, but Stacy Miller has a desire to serve God, which is higher than any opinion I might have or any judgment I might have. So, it's who are we to criticize each other anyway? Because we're all willing to be servants of the Most High, and that's the most important thing. We work for Him, work for God. We don't work for.
Terry made an important point is to avoid criticism. Now, there's a time and place for everything, but the time to criticize is actually very rare. And DK was careful about how he criticized members of his group. He did sometimes, but it was a very gentle criticism. But seeing others through a critical eye in the group, normally when a group member of any group criticizes another group member, they're seeing a reflection of themselves. And they are often more guilty of what they're criticizing than the person they're attacking. And so Dale Carnegie wrote a great book on this, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And he pointed out that criticism should be very rare because the main thing it does is just antagonize the other person because he feels unjust. Because he pointed out that every person feels that what he is doing is justified. Even people that we consider criminals, they feel that what they're doing is justified. And if you criticize another person for almost anything, especially if you do it in a critical attitude, then they will be offended and they will not like it and they will close down. And in a group that's trying to approach the soul, it closes down the door to the soul for the entire group when a critical attitude manifests within the group. So let's say you're in a group and working on a project, and Dave over there to your left, he's kind of fiddling around and not doing his fair share. So what should the guy do? Should the other worker come to the leader of the group and say, hey, Dave isn't doing his fair share. You need to throw him out or give him a piece of our mind. Okay. And then this grievance toward Dave produces a block for the group and the soul. And so what the person should do, well, let me throw that out. What should the person do? You're you're working beside Dave and on a project, and Dave is kind of screwing around, not doing his share of the work. What should you do with Dave?
The leader should ban both of them immediately. They're clearly bad influences on the group, and they're holding other people back.
Okay, that's one idea. Any other ideas?
Well, I think that it may be fruitful, it may not, but the two people in question, one should sit with the other, a time out or go out for coffee or something, and just say, look, this is what I feel. Just say, this is what I feel. I don't believe you're working up to your potential, and I just want to understand where, how you feel about it. Just try and be civil about it. Try and get to some agreement that may, as I said, it may or may not be, because when two people are working together on a same level, one has the possibility to say, well, who are you to criticize me? You're not my boss. I've heard that how many times in my work. But we're supposed to be, or we strive to be above that confrontational frame of mind, that we want to understand, and we want to work on the same. We want to work for the same goal. In the Theosophical Center, there's this phrase: we do not concern ourselves with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work we have on hand and the end we keep in view is too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. Well, that's just
Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's quite possible that Dave is still getting some work done, but maybe just not as much work as Shirley here, who's just really diligent. But so maybe the best thing for Shirley is just to proceed. And if Dave is going too slow, we replace him with somebody else and give Dave another job. There may be another way around this that doesn't require anyone attacking anyone else. Now, Adam pointed out a scripture. Can you find that scripture and read it to us, Adam? You have that handy?
You're muted, Adam.
You're muted, Adam.
Sorry. Okay, this is from the Doctrine and Covenants, which is Mormon scripture. Joseph Smith taught this. No power or influence can or ought to be maintained by virtue of the priesthood, only by persuasion, by long suffering, by gentleness and meekness, and by love unfeigned, by kindness and pure knowledge, which shall greatly enlarge the soul without hypocrisy and without guile, reproving betimes with sharpness when moved upon by the Holy Ghost, and then showing forth afterwards an increase of love toward him whom thou hast reproved, lest he esteem thee to be his enemy.
Yeah, that's a really good scripture. No matter what religion you are, that is good advice. So,
JJ, let me just add something here. I mean, even in relation to the scripture that Adam has just quoted, one will probably want to interrogate whether one should approach this matter from a personality point of view or from soul point of view. If one should decide to approach it from personality point of view, then there's issues of conflict and will arise. But from a soul point of view, I think we're looking at subjective synthesis, if that will help in a way that one will try to appeal to that person from that point of so that subjective synthesis and telepathic interplay, if that is a way that we can approach that that person and then see what happens. But from a personality point of view, that would mean clearly try to reprove the person, and that person becomes an enemy, as the scripture has quoted. But I take your point of just allowing the person to carry on, and maybe you may just look at it as something that should be related to allowing people to work on the basis of the committee of the willing, and let those other people see if they can come back to the mainstream.
Yeah, there's a big difference between the personality and the soul. When two people are speaking in the personality, it's easy to see conflicts. Another conflict that occurs is, say, language, inappropriate language. I've had several complaints about certain members using inappropriate language, okay? Well, and that's in the eye of the beholder to a large degree. So what's interesting is inappropriate language in one generation is different from another. People don't realize it, but Abraham Lincoln received a lot of criticism for inappropriate language. But when you look at the language he used now by today's standards, it was G-rated. But back in those days, he used to have a repertoire of stories. He could come up with a story for anything. He had hundreds and hundreds of stories memorized. And they were kind of considered inappropriate stories, some of them, but not by today's language, to be inappropriate, they might have to be highly sexual or something like that. His were not that way, but they were just kind of politically incorrect stories of the era that he used to tell, and he got a lot of laughs from them, from just regular people. He told them to, but some of the stuffed shirts in Congress and stuff thought he was way out of line in the way he told his stories. I like to say they didn't have any swear words in. They didn't have any strong sexual innuendos in, but they were just backwoods type stories that the polished hierarchy thought belonged to the riffraff and not the highly polished political people. And so he was highly criticized for the stories he told, but the common people just loved his stories. Matter of fact, somebody published a book about Abraham Lincoln's stories that was a bestseller in his time, and that got him a lot of mileage with the common people. That's one of the reasons Lincoln said God must have loved the common people, because he made so many of them. And because the common people were the ones that really supported the guy. But anyway, yeah, we've got some criticism in the group for people using some inappropriate language and stuff, but what is inappropriate language in one era may be okay in another. But the important thing is, well, let's suppose it is inappropriate by today's standards. It's not worth throwing the guy out of the group for. Maybe we will edit it out or tell the guy, hey, you know, tone it down next time around or whatever, but there's no reason to, maybe the guy that said the inappropriate language didn't really think it was inappropriate, or was innocent in his mind as far as that goes. So what we need to do with different people that do things that we consider inappropriate is try to put ourselves in his shoes. And if we think that what he says may offend readers and chase them off or whatever, then tell them in as gentle a language as possible. This is one of the things that Dale Carnegie said was, he says, sometimes we have to give a criticism, sometimes there's no way around it. He says, if it can be avoided, avoid it, because a criticism should be something of last resort, because it usually produces a lot more negative result than positive. But if there is an occasion now and then where it can't be avoided, it has to be done. And he says, if it has to be done, then he says the best way to do it is approach the guy and tell him good things about himself. Say, well, John, you give a really good presentation on this, and I really liked it. And, you come up with really good ideas. Throw in some praise for the guy first, he says. And then after you hit him with a couple items of praise, so that he knows that you're his friend. He knows that you're not his enemy. He knows that you're not just want to attack him and nothing else. So you give him a couple items of praise, and you can always find something to praise in anybody. And then after you give him a couple items of praise, saying, but what you did would have been a lot better, instead of just saying, yeah, you really screwed up here. That's not the approach. Instead of saying that, you say, but what you did would have been perfect if you would have just done this, or if you would have just avoided saying screw you or whatever, And if you would have avoided saying this, because that might have offended some people, your presentation would have just been perfect. So he says there's ways to word a criticism so it doesn't really sound like a criticism. That's instead of sounding like a criticism, it should sound like you're trying to help. If you sound like you're trying to help, then the person will not be so offended. But even here, some people will be offended, because some people are very easily offended. Even if you sound like you're trying to help, some people will be offended. But with a certain percentage of people, you can navigate and give a criticism in as positive way as possible, and they will respond in a positive way and not negative. I remember when I was on my mission, I learned a lot about that criticizing. And my first missionary companion, on way back, I was 19 years old. He used the word I all the time. And we would go to a meeting, and it was like he was there and I wasn't even there, because he would say I this and I that. After a couple of weeks, it really started grating on me. So I says, Elder, this really bothers me how when we're in a group and you keep saying I all the time. I says, can you say we? Because I'm here with you. And he says, sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that. So he says, I'll correct that. And I thought, boy, that worked out pretty smooth. And then the next companion I had a similar complaint with, and I told him, and boy, he was highly offended and just about ready to get in a fight with me over it. But I thought, wow, big difference between these two individuals. And that's where I learned that most people, you cannot just come out and tell them what they're doing wrong. You have to navigate very carefully with individual egos. The first guy, perhaps, was the only guy, one of the few I've ever met in my life, that I could tell directly what I thought he was doing wrong, and he had understanding. But and actually tried to correct it. But that I found out that was a rarity. Most people you correct them and they are highly offended instantly. So this is something that we have to work with and navigate through, and it's a difficult navigation. But any other comment on that idea?
Well, I find it a little different. Like, I'd much rather hear somebody have a criticism, if it's in good faith, if, they're not just hypocritically attacking me or something. But, if somebody has an honest criticism, rather than just come out and say it, rather than, like, dance around it. I mean, I actually kind of, Like, it's one thing if I don't know, but it's just like when you see somebody like buttering you up and like they're only giving you compliments because they're about to criticize you, it gets irritating. I'd rather just hear like, yeah, that speech you gave. I thought there was, they could put it a little bit nicely. Like, there's a few things they could have made it better or whatever. But the whole like buttering somebody up, I personally, for me anyway, don't really appreciate that. Especially the person never has anything nice to say until they're buttering you up to criticize you.
Yeah, if you sense any phoniness in the other person, then that's a big turnoff. So if you're going to use that approach, it has to be sincerity. If you're going to praise them first, it has to be something that's truly praiseworthy, or they will sense a rat, so to speak. And so it has to be sincere if you're going to use a praise mixed with criticism. But yeah, it's difficult to criticize people, no matter how you do it. And sometimes if you try to do it the Dale Carnegie way, like Joshua says, people will think, oh, you've been phony. And that could wind up not even helping. On the other hand, if you're sincere, if you say, boy, you really give a good message on ABC, and you did give a good message, and the guy feels he gave a good message, then he may think, well, yeah, it's nice to get that little bit of praise there because I feel I did do it. And that could butter him up to make the criticism less harsh. So, okay, any other comments on that idea?
JJ, when I was in graduate school and getting my degree in education, and then my certificate to be a supervisor, we were taught, because we had to evaluate, we had to write evaluations of the teachers in our department. So we were always taught what you have to do is you have to list all of the positive things that you observed this teacher doing, all of the things that built confidence for the students. And then only after you did that, they called it, then you list areas for improvement. Even the language used is it's avoiding criticism. So instead of saying, well, you should have done this or you should have done that, you frame your language by saying that perhaps it would have been more effective if you had done such and such. And so then, you're giving support, but at the same time pointing out an area of weakness. And I think that goes a long way, not just in the classroom, but in all kinds of group interactions.
Yeah. It's interesting to watch the discipleship, or read the discipleship in the New Age. DK talks about how destructive criticism is, yet there are times that he has to criticize different students because sometimes there's just no way around it. And he tells them pretty directly what they're doing wrong. And he doesn't use the buttering up idea like Dale Carnegie suggests, but he just pretty much tells them, but he tells them gently. You can tell that he's telling them with the spirit of love and seeking for improvement. But even a master has to criticize once in a while. Sometimes it's unavoidable. But on the other hand, some of the people he offended and just left. So even his criticism sometimes caused people to be miffed and leave the group. So
Well, he seemed to criticize somebody in every letter he wrote. I mean, there was almost not a single letter where he wasn't pointing something out. They had to, turn around.
yeah, he didn't do it in like an attack type mode. Like,
No,
he did it from a very mental mode. Now,
but it's things that people would probably be offended if somebody were to tell them that in a lot of instances.
yeah, probably. I have found in my life that sometimes I have criticized people in the most loving mode that I could muster up, and they felt tremendously attacked still. It's
Well,
amazing.
one of the qualities of the third ray is tact. And
Is
that
what?
tact, T-A-C-T, tact.
Yeah.
And I've always believed that there's always a way that you could intuitively think of the best way to say something to a person that would forward the action, so to speak, and get the point across and create cooperation.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing is that the person that is to be well, let's say, I'll use the word criticize is the wrong word, but the person who is to be pointed out to as to a better way, you know, you're dealing with that person's ego. And, you know, right away, you know, when you're saying something in the mode of a correction, even as you said, in the most tactful and loving way, and they were still offended, well, that was their ego that was offended, wasn't it? So
Yeah, it's the ego that's the problem, and we have to let the ego take a back seat. And but the ego is very easily offended. Like a while back, I had a member quit. I won't say who it was because he said that another member lied about him and did this and did that, and he sent me about 10,000 words of text dialogue they had on chat group against with each other, and it took me quite a while to read through those 10,000 words. But anyway, I read through them all, and I saw, well, you know, neither one of them was completely innocent in this. One was just as guilty as the other. So I told him that, and he was, and then I went to the other person that was, he felt needed to be reprimanded. He wanted me to reprimand this other guy, or maybe even throw him out of the group. And so I went to the other guy, and he says, well, you know, let's have a meeting and I'll apologize. So we had a meeting on Zoom, and he apologized, but it wasn't enough. He wanted a pound of flesh. So I says, well, I've done all I can do, so I can't do any more. Got you together. He apologized, but it wasn't enough for you. Sorry. And that member left, and we've never seen him again. And so this happens. And it's too bad that it happens, that people think they're maybe lying when they're not lying, or maybe they're just exaggerating a little bit, or maybe they're mistaken a little bit. We have to be tolerant of other people in group activity. And that's one of the reasons I kind of given everybody a pat on the back who's kind of hanging with me over the years, is they're the type of people that are not easily offended. How about you, Rulina? Are you easily offended?
I don't think so.
I haven't seen you be offended over anything. What's going on with you? How come you're not offended?
I don't know. I just,
Well,
no, so I think, you know, also, you know, you may, you know, let's be honest. Sometimes somebody will make some type of remark, and we're talking about job performance now. But what about race, sex, sexual orientation? What if someone just makes an innocent joke that really rankles
yeah,
you?
that hasn't been a problem in the group at all. We have gays in the group and people with different orientations, and nobody's complained about anything in that area.
Well, a problem and whether or not people complain aren't the same thing.
That was my next point. I would say, you know, sometimes people just swallow it, you know, and just for the sake of the group and just go on.
You know, yeah.
Which is, I mean, you know, that's your prerogative. You're not going to confront the person. You may not appreciate it, but you'll just let it go.
Well, that's what you got to do sometimes, you know. But as far as like different races go, we should. That's the basic esoteric view: is we're all one people, and it is, if somebody gets upset over somebody of just because somebody's different than them, well, that can create a problem. But we haven't had to deal with much in that area, so thank God.
One thing I found, Joe, if somebody has a criticism towards me, it's either justified or it's not. If it's, if somebody's just angry for whatever reason, wants to dump on me, I don't take it personally. If they're correct or accurate, or if I've really screwed up and they're nailing me, then I can tell, you know what, he's right. I didn't need to move that pile of bricks a little faster. Okay, you know what, I'm going to work on that. If I'm moving faster than him and he says that, I'll say, well, okay, I hear you. Let's keep going.
Yeah,
I won't take it personally.
Curtis has been pretty good in that area. There's been a couple times in our relationship I've approached him about something, and he's always considered it without being highly offended. So that's the attitude that you have to have, because sometimes when people come to you and criticize you, maybe there's something to it. We should
Listen.
Yeah, we
At
should
least
listen.
have a discussion over it.
But if they come to you and criticize you like they're angry and attacking, then the natural instinct is to tell them to go to hell. But if they come to you with sincerity and they say, hey, man, I have a problem. What you said really hurt my feelings or whatever. If they approach it right, we should listen to them. But yeah, if they attack in the criticize in the attack mode, then the natural instinct is to tell them where to go, even if they're correct, because criticizing in attack mode is worse than what you're criticizing for generally. Okay.
Jay, regarding contentious topics like sex and race and stuff, not race actually, but our triad has been discussing, how would you put it, gender differences and the interaction of genders, not exactly along the lines of what you say in the book, I mean, having to do with that somewhat, but like current events and different perspectives on it. So we've had some disagreements and gone back and forth on it, but I think it's been good. I think other people have said it's been good discussing this. But, it's not all, we all agree. We've had disagreements and we've kind of, I think, worked through them.
Some of the things are kind of touch and go, like they want us to use they for he, and that's really bad English. So they're trying to talk us into changing English into bad English and redefining words. And, that goes against my grain, but when the dust is settled and new rules are established, I guess most of us will eventually have to go along with it. But there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't like changing the language to ABC. There's nothing wrong with saying that. But a lot of people say there's something wrong with it. Well, there's nothing wrong with having an opinion on a language change. But one of the problems is people are called bigots or racists or whatever for disagreeing with anything that people want to do, and that is an attack below the belt, as far as I'm concerned. We should be able to talk about things on an intellectual level. Okay, any other comments on that line of thought?
Yeah, there was this. Dr. Warren Farrell had an interesting. He was talking about marriages because he's done couples counseling and stuff, and his idea was kind of a problem people have is they'll, obviously have criticisms for each other, but the relationship gets toxic because it's sort of like every time they're interacting, there's a criticism and there's a fight. So I'm not sure I totally agree with this idea, but it's worth thinking about. He said that you only set aside one day or one period of time during a day each week for a couple to discuss, their issues or their criticisms. And
That's a good idea.
yeah, so that it's not like where it's going to be. It's not like you come home and you're going to get criticized, or somebody comes home and then they start criticizing it. It's contained and it's sort of measured. And you pick one thing that's important that you want the other person to work on. Not a whole laundry list, but one thing each week or each time period. So I thought that was sort of an interesting idea. It sort of gives it an order.
Yeah, there's certain things that's something that's a really intelligent thing to do on the personality level. Now, on the soul level, you go through a process, either meditation or prayer, like we had the disagreement on the keys about what a law is. And you could say, well, in our discussion, can we make this definition of a law? And then focus together in a period of silence to see if the soul approves of that statement. And if the soul approves of that statement, then everybody in the group that is in contemplation should receive the same affirmation and the same light, and be able to see what the difference is between a universal law and a law implemented by Congress. Two totally different things. But there was a problem we had in this group discussion, is there was no differentiation. Like a law was just a law. And so this is an important differentiation, and important that we train ourselves. And this is one of the things we'll do as conflicts come up. But fortunately, with this group, lately we haven't had that many conflicts come up, so we haven't had much practice of ironing out conflicts through the soul, because we have a very good group here. But yeah, the group that I had when I married Artie, we had a tremendous conflict come up. So great that one of the group members got up on the table, our table, just about ruined our table with her shoes, and got angrily lectured the rest of us about what reprobates we were. But but anyway, Curtis and I have gone through some interesting conflicts with a couple of groups that we worked with, and so in many ways this group here is a delight compared to what we've been through in the past. So you guys, hopefully I'm not complimenting you too early, but you are a good group, and there's a good vibration when we're together. None of us are perfect, but you guys all have really good intent, and you want to do your best to be one with the soul. Okay. Any more comments or questions before we move ahead on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. We all have, that's what I was saying earlier. We all have good intentions to do good work, and that counts for a lot more than anything we could criticize each other over.
Yeah, none of us are perfect. That's but
Except for Ed.
I used to be conceited, but now I'm perfect.
Ed achieved perfection when he's 80, so I've just got 5 more years to go. Maybe I can get there.
There was a group I was in 1970, and said that they disbanded in 1974 because some of the participants were a little promiscuous with other people's partners.
Well, that's another thing that destroys groups. I've had people come into my groups that I've created, and they said, yeah, you've got a group here. I had a group similar to yours, and then people started messing around with other people's wives, and we figured promiscuousness was the rule of the day, and he says it just destroyed it. And so, yeah, that happens in a lot of groups. They figure that, we're free, we're not like a regular religious group. We can like mess around and do stuff. and take drugs and sex, drugs, rock and roll, and then they destroy each other, and the group falls apart after a short period of time.
Well, you're talking
yeah,
about
that
laws.
has to be avoided also. Yeah. What'd you say, Ed?
Talking about laws, you know, when people begin to think that they're spiritual, they think they have laws that are different than the rest of the people.
Yeah, and that's a problem too. Yeah, like David Koresh thought, if I remember right, he wouldn't let his followers even have sex with their wives, but he could have sex with any of the wives he wanted. And so he felt he was on a different. He felt he's on a different level to everybody else, and that.
Well, then there's all those TV preachers that got caught with their pants down.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Don't teach them.
Okay. In our last meditation, I had the impression that Rulina had a sensitivity that maybe could cross some barriers. And so I was thinking of having another meditation and having her be like a conduit for us. Are you willing to participate in that, Rulina?
I guess so. What do you mean by conduit?
Well, you said that you couldn't even remember where you went. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is find out where you went.
Okay.
Yeah. And you might have went a interesting place that could provide information and pierce the barrier between us and the higher lives. So how often does that happen to you?
Oh, I don't know. Every so often. When I used to
Is
meet,
it during our meditation? Is that when it happens?
lots of times it's during a meditation. Lots of times I used to do the meditations with the Moria Federation, the new moon, was it new moon, full moon? And it seems like I did it quite a bit during those.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes during our meditations, it's happened. Sometimes during my own.
Yeah. Okay, well, I was thinking of doing a meditation and having you be in the center here and just see where it goes. Okay. Okay, let's sound the Om. Om, 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 om. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. See light manifesting. Close your eyes and see an increase of light within your forehead. See us all in a circle. And see Rulina sitting in a chair in the center. See the light from your forehead streaming forth to her encompassing her whole body, filling her whole body full of light. And Rulina, focus on feeling the light coming from everyone else in the circle to you. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. See the Christ descending in a beam of light. He's descending and standing before Rulina. And he places his hands upon her head. And he says, the link between heaven and earth is consummated. And Rulina, look up and see the light going up into heaven, linking you through Christ and the Father and higher lives. From the center where the will of God is, from the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. We sense higher will coming down from us, reaching out in threads of light to the Christ and to Rulina in the center. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Now the Christ is there next to Rulina with his hands on her head, and he enters into her body. Now we step forward, and all of us enter into her body. We are all there together. We are one consciousness, all together. We sound the Om to clear of anything impeding a higher spiritual connection. Rulina, can you hear me?
Yes.
See the Christ. See his essence. He takes you in his arms and embraces you first. You feel his love. And he says, come with me, I will show you all that you want to see. And you feel yourself ascending higher. Do you have a question to ask to the Christ?
Yes.
What did
Yes,
you say?
I said yes.
Okay, what is that question?
What's my next step?
For you or for the group or what?
Me to begin with.
Okay, ask that question and wait for the answer. The answer will come. Ask the question out loud.
What's my next step?
And what's the answer?
Patience. It's coming.
Now ask, what is the next step for the group? Ask that question to the Christ.
What's the next step for our group?
And what's the answer?
Continue and persevere.
Ask, how close are we to completing the molecule?
How close are we to completing the molecule? I get the same phrase. It's coming.
What do you get?
It's coming. But not yet.
Say, are we on the right track?
Are we on the right track? Mostly. I get mostly.
Say, what more can we do?
What more can we do? He's silent but smiling.
Is it like he's saying it's up to us?
Yeah, I think so. It's up to each of us.
Ask, what advice do you have for us?
What advice do you have for us? He says we need to call out to the angels more.
That's interesting. Ask, how do we do this?
It will be shown. That's also individual. We have to go within in each ask.
Do we need the names of these angels? Ask this.
We need the names of the angels. I'm not getting anything. It's unclear.
Okay.
As soon as we started, there were many angels that came. I sense many around us.
Ask this. What can I, Rulina, do to be a more clear messenger of the Most High? Ask that question.
I don't need to. I know the answer. I have to let go of fear.
Yes. Are you afraid right now?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I
think you feel a good presence right now, don't you?
yes.
Yes. And that presence is the opposite of fear.
It's the fear of opening up myself.
Yes, I think you can become a really good channel if you open up and let yourself be accessed by a higher presence in full consciousness. Ask the presence, is there anything else we should know before we close?
Is there anything else we should know before we close? They're cheering us on.
They're what?
Cheering us on.
Oh, they are. That's good. And they would be the masters and angels, or what?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Now count to 3 and we will all be back in our normal states. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that was kind of an experiment there. I kind of had a feeling Rulina was pretty sensitive to the higher worlds. We might try that with some other people. I like to say, on the other hand, I find that females are more sensitive than males for receiving. Because us guys we like to send out and tell everybody what to do, but the females are willing to receive.
Thanks for that, Rulina.
Yeah, do you have any comments on your impressions, Rulina?
Like I said, as soon as when you put me in the center and all of a sudden, and we're having everybody direct light towards me, all of a sudden I just sensed all these angels, people, whatever around us. And like I said, we need to be asking for more of their help.
Yeah, that's an interesting statement you made, that we need to call upon, what'd you say, call upon the angels?
Yeah, I don't have another word for it. It's not quite the right word, but that's,
Is there another way to word that? What kind of impression did you get when you got the feeling to call upon the angels? Like there's helpers, invisible helpers around us that we're not using, that we should be using?
yeah.
I had a positive spiritual energy, like a presence I picked up when you were there. So that's a positive sign. And did you feel a positive presence?
Yes, pretty much so. I just sat here and bawled the whole time.
Okay. Well, we'll have to do this regularly because the more we do it, the more that might come true. See who else we have here. There might be a possibility. Cindy and Jill are both pretty sensitive. Would either one of you like to try this?
Jill would be good.
You mean another time? You mean another time,
Oh,
JJ?
right now.
Yeah, I'd be willing. I'm not afraid.
I just, sorry, go ahead.
No,
Go.
go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to point out I had an impression the other day.
What was that?
When you said, I forget what you said, JJ. I think it was yesterday at the meditation. Like, what was it? Oh, like somebody. There's a message God is going to give somebody, and somebody should speak or something. You remember this?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. So after a little while, I was directed at Cindy, and I know she's uncomfortable with that kind of stuff. But at that moment, I was felt to focus on Cindy for some reason. So
Yeah, I think Cindy, Jill, and possibly Mindy. Mindy's a little bit, she's a kind of a mysterious person. She's a hard one to read. And I think she's that way on purpose.
Pam would be good too. Pam's
Yeah.
very sensitive.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll try both, maybe both of them if we got time. We got a little bit of time left. Jill, you want to be in the center then?
Yeah, I was gonna say, based on Joshua's comments, if Cindy wanted to go next, I'd be fine relinquishing my place in line.
I'm happy for
Well,
you.
since he had that impression, let's see if Cindy is willing. Are you willing, Cindy? Because
I'm-
she's from Australia. She doesn't get to attend these meetings very often because of the time
That's the other
difference.
thing I was thinking, that she's here now. We should tap into that advantage.
Yeah. What do you think, Cindy?
Well, of course, I would be willing to do it for the group, but I wouldn't mind it if Jill went next.
Well, both of you are generous spirits. So if
I thought that experience with Relina in the center was very powerful,
yeah,
and there was a real sense of group merging.
yeah, I felt good spiritual energy that haven't felt for some time. So that's good. And okay, if you're willing, let's go with you since we don't get to see very often because of the time differences.
Okay.
Okay, just close your eyes and focus. Our Father, Mother God, We pray for your presence to descend with light and love and power. See us all in a group with Cindy in the center. And light in the center of her forehead increasing, filling the whole group with light with the highest intensity. Focus on Cindy in the center. Our Father, Mother God, send forth thy messenger, the Christ, to descend, standing before Cindy. Cindy rises up, you embrace her and enter her, and she sits back down. We, as a group in this circle, all approach. We enter into Cindy's body, and we share the consciousness. We are all one. Om, 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 om. And we look up and we see myriads of angelic beings watching. For that, not that many, piercing the veil between heaven and earth. So this attracts attention of numerous heavenly beings. Were we attempting to pierce the veil, the true veil? Cindy, in the center of your forehead, see a light increasing in strength, and this light represents the consciousness of Christ, who is now in you. And ask the question, what is there that the Christ wants us to know?
What is there that the Christ wants us to know?
Listen for the answer. He will give it to you.
He says, love more,
What did you say?
love more.
Love more? Okay. Focus on increasing the presence. You are able to speak for the Christ himself. And when I address you, you will speak as if you are the Christ. What do you want us to know?
You are close.
Repeat.
You are close. Love more.
What will happen in the year 2525? 2025, I'm sorry, not 25, 2025. Is there anything we need to know? Can we avoid destruction?
Yes.
How far away is the gathering of lights?
It will be within 10 years. Possibly sooner. Dependent on many things.
Is there anything else you wish us to know?
We are near and watching closely.
Is there any key to calling upon angels to help us?
Just sincerity of intention.
Can you visualize the Christ stepping aside, but he lays his hands upon your head and a beam of light rests upon you, which is his presence. And you will have that presence with you as long as you desire. Amen. Okay. Felt like you were right here in the room with me, Cindy.
I got that too. I
Okay,
felt
do you have
that
any
one.
comments on your impressions there?
No, the energy was very much a group energy. I felt like very strongly that we are definitely being observed, and that they were somehow pleased at our efforts so far. That came through very strongly.
So our efforts aren't being ignored, huh? Well, that's nice to know. Okay, let's do it one more time with Jill here. Got plenty of time.
Thanks,
Okay.
Cindy.
What's say?
I just said thank you, Cindy,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah,
really.
thanks, Cindy. I wish I could have heard it. I got disconnected right as JJ asked you what you said at the first,
Oh,
and then
did
I
you?
came back. Yeah, the internet kicked me off.
Oh,
I'll have to
I
watch the recording.
hope that that doesn't happen to me when I'm recording. It did that one time, but we were just starting. But yeah, you can listen to it. It was a little hard to understand some of her answers. I'll have to go through and listen again. But uh, did you get any impression that you should tell us about clearly, Cindy? What with the angels? What did they say about the angels asking them for help?
Uh, let's see, I think they just said sincerity of intention.
I
Yeah.
That
got the
was what,
same. I got the same thing.
You got the same sincerity of intention will bring the
Yeah.
help of the angels.
Yeah.
Well, you know, back in early Christian times, they seemed to get a lot of help from angels, and we haven't heard much about it in this past couple generations. So maybe we just need to call upon them more.
Joe?
What's
Joe?
that?
I wanted to read you a little bit, if I could, from Anthony Williams, The Medical Medium. In
Yeah.
one of his first books, he talks about how to access angelic aid.
Oh, really? Okay.
Believes in angels. And he talks, even describes them and describes their roles. And he said the important thing about it, you have to ask for their help aloud. You can't just think about it. This is huge. Angels are dealing with so much negativity on the planet that we need to be active in calling their attention. Our minds are spider webs of thought and emotion, obsessions, fear, anger, insecurities, guilt, worry, pain, imaginary conversations with people we're mad at, whatever. Angels don't want to get stuck in all of that. It's too difficult to disentangle the genuine request for their help. Remember that angels have free will. It takes a little work on our part and our end to show that we're sincere, honest, and committed. Angels don't like to be toyed with or tested. They want us to take them seriously. In order to get a response from an angel, you must fully set your mind to her and say her name out loud. You don't have to scream or shout, even a whisper works, as long as it comes out of your mouth that will separate it from everything else in your consciousness and signal it as a clean message, not clinging to anyone else, anything else. And then he talks about there's some angels in the angelic realm that are unknown. And he said there's 144,000 of these unknown angels in existence, which is a holy number that God reveres. Because they're unnamed, they have no notoriety or acclaim, and therefore very little temptation to develop an ego. And they're very powerful. And I said the angels that everybody calls on is the Michael and what's the other one, the Gabriel. He said they actually have gotten real egotistical, and they like to cherry pick their jobs because they're very busy. And so he said that he's not putting them down because we're all susceptible to ego, but they're flooded with requests for help all over the globe. So he's saying that there's other powerful angels that you can call upon. And he mentions 21 of them.
Well, that sounds a little hairy-fairy that they got a big ego.
Well,
But,
aren't they part of the kingdom?
yeah, but it's interesting. Call upon them, but he says call upon their names, but we're not given hardly any names except for a handful.
Well, there's 21 that he gives, but it's called like the angel of awareness. You call upon the angel of awareness. There's not a name like Harry. So, and he talks about each one of these and what they do.
Now, DK talks about several great beings. One he calls the spirit of peace. And he calls a couple by that name, the spirit of something. I can't remember the others, but I remember there was a spirit of peace. And he mentions a couple by that, not names as we understand it, but more like a
Well, it seems like the rest of us, they have free will. So I guess they can pick and choose, but he said if you call upon them with the intention, focused intention, like Cindy was saying, and you're willing to receive, that's going to be enough. And if they're not too busy helping other people, because their powers are impressive, they will arrive within anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes to aid and comfort you.
And what's the name of that book?
This is Anthony Williams' Medical Medium.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And he's written 4 or 5 books now. And in the back of his first book is about the angels, about the essential angels.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we got a few minutes left, so let's try Jill this time. If
Okay.
she is willing.
I am.
We'll have a triangle now.
Triangle of feminine energy here. Okay, that's pretty potent.
Very powerful stuff.
Okay, there are 3 priestesses here today. Okay, everyone close your eyes. See us in a circle with Jill this time in the center. See the light increasing in your forehead, filling your whole body, radiating to the center where Jill is, filling the whole circle and the center and Jill with light. Sound it again and sense the power and the fires of love being amplified, filling the whole center. Oh, Father God, we ask you to send your messenger, the Christ. Let him descend and stand before Jill. He places both hands upon her head. And he says to her, peace be unto you. Not the peace that the world gives, but the peace that I give, that the Father gives, that all those who are one give. Feel the peace that passes all understanding. Let this peace originate in the Christ, and he enters into Jill's body, and Jill senses the peace that is in the mind of Christ. And each of us step forward and enter into Jill's body. And say within yourselves, we as a unit enjoy the peace that passes all understanding. Let there be a moment of silence and feel the great peace. Jill, sense a union with the mind of Christ, with the minds of everyone in the group, and feel yourself being lifted up. You're lifted up to a spiritual realm. You're surrounded by angelic beings, and you feel their love for you. And you hear the voice of Christ saying, "Whatsoever you ask, it shall be given." The consciousness of Christ is one with you, and I will speak to you, and you will answer me with the consciousness of Christ. Is there anything else we need to know about the completion of the molecule?
You are close. Purify yourselves. And help each other along the way.
What do you see happening during the election time?
Turmoil.
Will this nation survive?
Yes. But it will be changed.
What will be the change?
Upheaval.
For the better or the worse?
Eventually, the better.
How long before it gets better?
It depends on humanity.
What more can we do to call for the assistance of angels?
Look within yourselves and purify. And they will come to your aid.
What more do we need to purify?
The interference of emotions.
Is there any other advice you have for us?
Don't stop working towards your goal. Stay the path.
Very good. Now, we'll have Rulina and Cindy join their consciousness with you. There's you and Cindy and Rulina form a triangle. And at the center of the triangle is the consciousness of the master. All sound this Om while we focus on this consciousness that is blended. Do any of you three have any other words for us before we close? If nothing else, just sense the merging of the consciousness and see yourself going higher than before. Any of you three can speak the final words to us.
Just get the word stay strong.
I'm getting be kinder to each other.
I just get a confirmation basically of what Jill said and stay the course.
Endure to the end and be delivered. Very good. Okay, we'll sound the Om and everybody have their consciousness back in their chairs. Om, 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 Om. Well, there was a nice spiritual feeling there. That's good. Anybody else in the group have any impressions?
I just want to say thanks, Jill. And again, thanks to all three of you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I had the impression that the Christ really liked that. the three together. I felt something. That was nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
You said to do that at 11:11, at least East Coast time.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, well, we had three really good sensitive females there. That's good.
Joe?
Yeah.
I kept thinking of the words that I've read in the Tibetan books called Harmony Through Conflict.
Yeah.
And I wondered about the application of that during what's going on today.
Well, yeah, we sometimes harmony is only produced through conflict. Like, say you have an argument with a friend or a spouse. If you resolve it, there's produced tremendous harmony for a period after that. If you don't resolve it, then there isn't harmony. But when there's a conflict that is resolved, then there's more harmony before. Now, before the conflict, there may have been suppression, so you had kind of a fake peace. But then after the conflict and it's resolved, then you have a real peace. And so that's kind of the way that harmony through conflict works. But sometimes to produce a real spiritual harmony, there has to be some type of conflict. And this left versus right, you know, it has to play itself out. There's really no other way. The important thing, if it's guided by the forces of light, it'll play itself out within rules. Like a football game. If you play a football game and both sides obey the rules, and you'll eventually have a winner, and the conflict is over, the winner is declared, and the rules were obeyed. Now, the trouble with human beings is we like to have conflict and no rules. And so that's that. With no rules, then you don't get the conflict resolved. But the life is a little bit like a game, and we need to abide by the rules of civility and human efforts to resolve these conflicts. Okay, good point. Anything else?
I had just an idea that even if everybody doesn't have the same kind of talent for drawing down higher stuff, it might be, and you sort of alluded to this, to call on somebody to sort of share their gifts with the group, whatever it might be, could be a good thing.
Yeah, I think we'll practice this every now and then, because the more we do stuff like this, the more sensitive people will get. And what you might do is think of questions we might ask the people in the center, where we put them in the center. And we're not beyond using a male too, if some of the males think they're sensitive. But
Most of those answers we already know.
yeah, we should know. But it's good to be reminded. And it was it's interesting to think of calling on the angels, because I haven't really been doing that. So that's an interesting thing I wasn't really thinking about. But
Well,
it might be worth investigating.
well, if you think about it, I mean, obviously this ties in with what Murray was talking about last night. So that's
yeah.
sort of the interesting parallel.
Yeah, it's interesting how many Davids are circulating around us that we don't even see, according to him.
But the thought I had was, so the molecular relationships, we're all focused on the male and the female human coming together and forming that balance. But what if another level to it is the human being the male and the David being the female, as you pointed out before, that balance is also needed.
Yeah, that's quite possible. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I think that might be something for us to think of during the next week till we have our next meeting, which will, I believe it's scheduled for 2 p.m. next Sunday at Mountain Standard Time, to focus on drawing attention of angels, see if any of us have any experiences with them. Because, energy follows thought. Let's say are a lot of angelic beings willing to help us. And before they can help us, we need to call on them, and we're not calling on them. So then they're ignored. So maybe we ought to pay more attention to more than just a nebulous God. Maybe these individual entities can supply us with more assistance than we realize. So anyway, we're kind of moving along with this experiment on the internet, and it's almost as good as being here in person, and it's a lot better than having no contact whatsoever, that's for sure. Okay, any other comments or questions before we'll wrap it up here pretty soon?
Just a note of thanks for the whole meeting, and for all the speakers, and for all the input, and for everyone that commented. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, well, thanks. And Mindy, we haven't heard much from you. Did you have any impressions about the meditation or higher contacts?
Yeah, there were several.
She might be a real sensitive one too. We'll have to test her out in the future. Did you get any impressions?
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt a really good presence. How about you?
Hmm.
Yeah. Matter of fact, one of the best presences I felt with the group. It was kind of a little bit surprising almost. So I think that's good.
I
Okay.
think we're on the right track, like they say.
How about you, Curtis? Did you feel a spirit there a little bit?
Yeah, I just feel a real peaceful spirit with this group. I feel there's no rough edges. I feel like I feel like we all have a real strong friendship bond with each other, all of us. I felt a real good feeling when the three girls were connected. That was the best.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. DK tells us that there's a lot of good individuals and a lot of spiritual individuals, but there aren't very many groups that are able to be, share a complete oneness. And so if we can achieve that, we're taking a major step toward being useful to the hierarchy. And if we're useful to the hierarchy, then they will enter us and elevate us. So according
What do
to
you think, Pam? What did you get any impressions? I haven't heard much from you. Evening. Pam, are you there?
maybe she took a little break.
Did.
Yeah.
Usually has some intelligent input.
Oh, and Rain is with us too. I didn't notice her. Okay, well, it's been great being with you guys. And if we don't have anything else, I want everybody to focus on bringing in the presence of angelic and higher beings into our group and into our lives.
Calling all angels.
That's an interesting thing to contemplate on.
Well, we got to assign everybody which angel everybody's invoking. Give us that list of 21 already, and we'll portion them out to.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have it to read off what he says the 21 are?
Yeah, let me find it back again on this book. I could also post it on the keys.
Yeah, post it on the keys.
Yeah.
Or molecular group.
There's angel of mercy, angel of faith, angel of trust, angel of healing, of restitution, of deliverance, of sun, of light, of water, of air, of purity, of fertility, of birth, of peace, of beauty, of purpose, of knowledge, of wisdom, of awareness, of relationships, of dreams. And then the 144,000 unknown angels that he doesn't name.
Take a while.
Okay, that's an interesting list. Yeah, so we don't need the individual names, but more of their position. Okay.
As long as you call on them out loud, that's important. You can't just think about it. It's like tuning into a radio station that's got a lot of static. They have a hard time getting our message because we have so many thoughts going on all the time. So you have to speak it with intention out loud.
We'll have to, type up that list and post it in the molecular group. Yeah, that sounds interesting. Well, and then everybody pick one they like and focus on one of these angels.
It's interesting. One of them stuck out to me, but then as she read more, two others stuck out in different ways.
What stuck out to you?
Well, first it was faith, and then
Faith?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, well, I think this was for me personally, not necessarily like.
Yeah.
But then beauty, and then relationship. So that was interesting. But they stuck out in different ways. The faith was, I guess, the strongest one.
It's time for me to focus on the angel of dreams.
Yeah, me too.
That's just about your bedtime, Ed.
It's getting late.
Okay, we'll, Artie will post that and we'll focus this on this more in weeks to come. That might be kind of interesting.
Angel of Dreams. I like that one.
Angel of Purpose. That sounds good too.
Yes, in fact, he says, before you go to bed at night, pray to the angel of dreams to protect you and watch over you while you sleep, and you'll sleep deeper.
Now,
Okay.
this guy's got an interesting story. He's had this presence. What was the name of the presence that he's connected with?
It's the spirit of compassion
Spirit
that
of
has been
compassion.
giving him information about people's health issues since he was 4 years old, when he didn't even know what the words meant. And he used to go around and give everybody readings about what was wrong with them. But the problem is that the energy it took to do that, he would be blind after several hours, so that it took hours to recuperate to get his sight back from these readings. And he couldn't go to the grocery store without everybody coming around him, and he was constantly bombarded by the spirit of compassion with information for these people. And it's a constant like speaking in his ear. He says it's not a voice in his head that he can just try to get rid of. It's a voice in his ear that's constantly speaking to him. And a lot of people it's driven crazy, and the spirit told him that you are a chosen person because you have stayed with it and you seem to be able to handle my instruction. And some people in the past who've had this instruction have committed suicide because they couldn't stand the constant talk. And so after a while though, he was healing and seeing and working with so many people, and he decided that he could have a greatest impact if he writes books. And he does podcasts for groups rather than one-on-one instruction and information. So now he's up to about 5 books, and he's known worldwide, and he's got one of the greatest and the largest healing groups, and I guess on the web right now.
This is the guy with celery juice, right? Or is
Yes.
that somebody
Right,
else?
he's a celery juice guy.
Yep. He's the one that brought it to popularity. In fact, I guess for a while we couldn't get, celery went way up in price, and some places were selling out. So, but apparently the supply has met the demand, so celery's gone back down to a more reasonable price.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll maybe focus a little bit more on angelic beings next few weeks, see what happens. That might be an interesting path to pursue. And all the females thought that we were getting close to developing the molecule and told us to not give up, so that's good news. Okay, any other comments or questions or before we sign off? Well, it's been a good gathering and good group of people, and this is a good consummation of it with a good energy, and I appreciate you guys. You're a good group, and we will see you next Sunday at 2 o'clock Mountain Standard Time.
May the force be with you.
Yeah.
Light and love.
JJ.
Thanks, JJ.
Love you guys.
Thanks, JJ.
Thanks for joining us this year. Hopefully we'll get together next year.
Lots of help.